Yeah, so let's continue with data cleaning and data processing. Uh, Again, we have data loaded in, and there are about 184 observations. So we want to generate new variables, append, learn how to merge, learn how to destring variables, and then format data based on the types or the data type. So these are some of the things we want to do in this part of the data cleaning and data processing. So let's start with generating new variables. Okay. So assuming we again take our age variable, which is A1 age, and we wanted to generate a new variable. And mind you, there are different ways of generating new variables. You can just type the generate command. So you can type it in full, or just type gen, or just type g. I usually prefer the shortest form, right? So I just type g. So generate variable, maybe new var, just a dummy variable, and then I assign it 1. So it means for this variable, for all the observations, we'll just have a value of 1, and that way we have a new variable generated. So that's how simple it is to generate a new variable. So generating variables. Okay, so that's how simple it is. So when you browse to the last part, you'd see our new variable, generate var. And when we tap it, we see that it's just for all the 184 observations, they have the value of 1. And that's how you can easily generate a variable. Now you can generate variables also from existing variables. So for instance, using our age variable, right? Now we pick our age variable, age, assuming we want to recategorize this. Mind you, when we tap age, you have the minimum age of 18 and then maximum age of 40. So maybe we want to recategorize this so that we have we look at women who are between the ages of 18 to 25. So we use the recode command. So recode. So we are looking at women 18 to 25 years, and then we say that they should be assigned a value of 1, and then we label them as what? Age category of 18 to 25 years, and then we close that bracket. Okay. Then we look at the next category we want to create out of age, and that would be 26 to 35 years. Then we also give that a value of 2, and we label that as well here. That's the advantage of using recode and generating a new variable. And so 26 to 35 years, and then we close that bracket. Now we want to look at those who are 35 to 40 years. So 35 to 40 years, and then we assign them a value of 3. So we are saying 35 to 40 years, and then we generate our variable, which is age underscore category. That's the name we are giving to the variable. Okay. So once we run this, we've generated a new variable. So okay, our new variable is generated. Okay, the new variable is generated. Okay. Okay, great. So when we come down here, we would see our age category there among the variables created. And then when we tab it, we tabulate it, we would see that we've generated a category, the age into different categories. 18 to 25 years, there were 58 respondents who are in that category. 26 to 25, there are about 210 people in that category. That's about 60% of the sample. And 35 to 40, that's about 14, that's about 7.7% of the sample, right? Yeah. So that's how to easily generate categories out of a continuous variable like age. Okay. So once we have a variable generated, mind you here, it has automatically labeled it as real code of this. So maybe we don't want to have this label for it. We may want to properly label this. We are now experts at labeling, right? Because in the previous videos we've gone through that. So now label var this, and we are saying we are giving it a name that is age categories of respondents. And so our variable is properly labeled. So it's the age category of respondent. Okay. And that's how you would have been able to deal with that so easily. Okay, great. So we've learned how to generate using this way. Okay. We may also want to use maybe assuming we are looking at assuming we're dealing with a regression and want to transform some of the variables like age, and so we could easily just say we are transforming age, looking at age squared, right? So we just take generate age underscore squared, that's the name we want to give to it, and then we just take our variable age and then we multiply it by itself. That's how simple we could create age squared. Okay, and so we now have a new variable that's age squared. So when we browse age and age squared, we'll see that so this is the square of 24. So the square of 24 is 576. So basically that's it. That's how to create and or generate variables. So that's another way to generate variables from existing variables. Okay, let's go and then look at again. We can use the egen, that's extended generate egen command, also to generate variables from existing ones. And sometimes this comes handy. For instance, if I think we can look at the our knowledge questions, a set of knowledge questions. Women were asked a series of questions to measure their knowledge on nutrition, and these are the questions C1 to question C7. Knowledge on balanced diet, birth weight, birth defects, antenatal, financial constraints, and all of those. So there were a series of questions that were asked them to measure. And so maybe, for instance, and when we browse these variables, this to this, would see that the responses were either yes or no, ones and zero, where yes is 1 and no is 0. Okay, so maybe we could, in some cases, when you're doing your analysis, you may want to generate a composite score for knowledge. So using this number of these variables, how many are they? About 7 variables. Okay, you may want to generate a composite score of this. We want to look at the mean, take the sum all of them together, divided by the total number of these things, and then we know on average how many each of them is scoring out of the knowledge questions. Okay, because the maximum the person will be able to score will be 7. So we can use the egen command to generate the total score, total knowledge score, right? And so now we're saying row, because they were row wise, we're looking at row total. Okay, so now with agent, the interesting thing about it is that it has within the agent command, it has sub commands like the row total, row mean, and others that you can call on to work with. So is to that, and then would have been generating the total. Okay, so let me copy this command to my do file just to keep record. So now when we browse this set of the 7 questions that are measuring the knowledge of women on nutrition, and we add our total score of their knowledge, you see that this person, the first person, actually scored all 7, and the next person had a score 4, 6, and all of that. So we can actually summarize the mean score for these women on their knowledge, and then we can even, if we wanted to categorize them and find those who perform the most, we can also convert these scores to percentages. So for instance, if you scored 7 out of 7, then that's 100%. Then we can generate a variable on percentage knowledge scores. So we can generate the percentage. So we can generate the percentage score they had, knowledge score they had, and that would have been what? Basically, us picking the total score they had, this total score they had, and we divide it by the maximum score they could get was 7, divided by 7, and then we multiply by 100. That would have been percentage score we're generating for them. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. We can use the agent command because we are not using a sub command. Okay. So sorry for that. Then we generate. Okay. Great. So now we can browse this and browse our percentage knowledge scores, and we see that we are great. When we pick the first individual who scored 7, the person in percentage terms, the person scored 100% of the knowledge questions. Okay, this person had about 57%, this person had about 85%, and so on and so forth. So you can recategorize them to look at those who had between 0 to 40% of the marks, those of the scores, those who had between 40 to, so you can categorize them that way, and then you can work with, and we've already done the categorization, right? You can simply use the recode to do those categorization. So that's how that also works. Okay, so that's about it for generating new variables. Let's quickly go to appending. Okay, you guys are learning a lot. It's good. I'm excited that we are following through and taking note of a thing or two. So let's look at merging and appending, right? So let me first explain the concept so that before we move into doing it. So you see our data set, when we browse it this way, there are about 184 observations. Okay, so there's a difference between appending and merging dataset. When you are appending dataset, what it means is we have another dataset, a separate dataset that has these same variables, and the names of the variables should be the same. Okay, so that what would be happening is when we are appending, then basically it's going to match this variable in this data set against the second the variable in the second data set. So for instance, if this is the endline data set, right? This is the endline knowledge, and we have a baseline knowledge and attitudes of women on nutrition, right? So when we pick this data set, the other data set should basically have the same set of variables. It will come and then just add up the information or the data from the baseline data to this one. So they'll continue from beneath here. Okay, and then there will be a variable that distinguishes them. So there will be a variable that tells us that this top part of the data is the endline data, and the down part here will be the baseline data. Then we have merging. So merging simply means that we are picking this data set, and for each unique observation or participant, we have to use their unique identifiers, and here we have the key which is unique for each of them. We want to continue. So for instance, and mostly we use merging when we are dealing with wide data formats, right? So and time series longitudinal data. So we took this data at one point, we want to take it in another point. We want our data to be in wide format. So we simply pick the key. So this particular person's the first of participants. This is the unique key. Then we merge it. Then we match it against the same person's key. So in this case, the person's information is going to continue on this line. So, and that would have been, so assuming we are taking the data a year ago, and now we are in 2024, and now in 2024 we took data on this particular individual, okay, on their knowledge on nutrition. In 2025 we've taken information, this same set of information on their knowledge on what's the name, their knowledge on nutrition. Now we use the key and then we merge it such that this particular, then the information on this particular individual would continue from this part of the entries. Okay, so we would be merging it that way, and we have different ways of merging. We have what we call the one-to-one merge. We have what we call the one-to-many and many-to-one merging. So, and merging is a whole concept on its own, so we may not cover that here. We'll cover that in the next video. But for this video, we'll cover appending. Okay. So appending. So we have a data set. We have our data set. We have in our folder, we have baseline and endline data set, right? So we want to append the baseline data to our endline data. Basically, what we want to do is this. We pick this append. So we start with the command append. Then append using quick data set. But before we do that, we should be sure that our working directorate is the folder we are talking about. Okay, and that's intro to, so we are working within this. Okay, and that's fine. So once we had to ensure that the working directorate was exactly where these two data were found, so that we don't have errors once we are trying to append. So when you are trying to append, ensure that the two data sets or data sets you are trying to append are in the same working directory or folder. Okay, so append using, and here we're already using the endline data set. So append using the baseline data set. Okay, so append using the baseline data set, and mind you, I said the variables should be the same. Okay, now I said that marital status already defined. Okay, but then it has successfully appended because there are no errors. And now how do you know that it's appended? When we check the count, we'll see that the count has increased from 184 to 297. And when we tap using the unique identifier that distinguishes the endline baseline data, which is the status variable, we would know that the endline data is around 184 and the baseline data is around 133. So that's how we know that we successfully appended. So appending is so simple. Now, when we browse our data, we'll see that it's been appended instead of ending at 184, which where the baseline endline data ends, it continues from 185. And when we browse this to the last part of the variables, you will see that, yeah. So as we can clearly see, those variables that were not in the baseline data, it's generated missing for those variables, and that's what happens when you don't have some variables in either of the data sets. Okay, so you see that Stata didn't tell us that it has generated and put missing values for these ones. It just did its work and then gave the results. And that's one scary thing about Stata. Okay, if you don't know what you expect and you don't know what you're looking for, when you put in anything there, you get a result. You might not get the right result, but you get a result. And if you don't know, you might be reporting wrong information or wrong results without knowing. So from here, we see the distinguisher status. Status is 1, which is the endline data, and here is 0. And then again, it's just the values and not the label. So we can easily label this as endline and label this as baseline. And we've learned how to do that, right? Just by using the label define status. 1 is endline and 0 is baseline. Okay, great. Okay, and then we attach the labels. So label values of status using status. Okay, so now when we browse again, we see that we have endline and baseline. Okay, so that's how it works with appending and labeling. Okay, so that's about it for appending. So the next thing we'll be looking at is dealing with or string cleaning. So when we say string cleaning, for instance, when we pick our variable that's the enumerator names. We have Amina, Nancy, Ada, Portia, Amina, and others, right? And you see that some are proper, some are just all lowercase. So maybe assuming we want to change all the names here to proper nouns, so that this Amina here starts with capital A. Then we would just replace this equal to proper, and then again that's the same variable. So the enumerator name, we want to convert them to proper names and then store them back in that same variable. So that's basically what we're doing with data, and then it's done that. And you see it doesn't affect all the commands. It's just a few of them. I mean all the observations, there's a few of them, these ones that had that issue. But when we now tap the same variable, we have it So they are now, so it's added them because basically it's reporting the unique entries. So Amina is now 172. So basically it has added 62 to 110. So 172, and the same for the other ones. Okay, so that's what happens when we are cleaning using the string. I mean, when we are dealing with string cleaning, we can also use so assuming there were spaces also here, we can use the string trim command. So for instance, here you may not see what is happening, but just so you know what it is, string trim, and then it would have, assuming there were spaces between the names, then it would have removed the spaces. But when I do it, there will be no changes because there are no spaces. Okay. Trying to get space here so that okay, this is what I'll do. Dealing with string. The next thing we may want to do is, so assuming we wanted to also change this to one would ask, yeah, we change them to proper. What if we wanted to change them to upper and lowercase names? Yeah, it can be done. But just have to change here to upper, and then would have had everything changed to uppercase. And when you tap it, you see that they are all in uppercase. And if we just change this to lower also, then changes all of them to lowercase. So when we tap it, they become lowercase. Okay, so that's how string cleaning works. So we can use string cleaning and to format our variables in that manner. So we can also look at formatting data types. Okay, when we say formatting data types, what do we mean? This is what I mean by formatting data types. Okay. Age is a quantitative variable, and so with ages we usually expect that we can run things like summary statistics like mean, median, modes, and all of these. Okay, but then there are instances where sometimes your data comes and the variable is it's string. So your continuous variable or your quantitative variable is string. And how do you check the data type of your variable? You simply use the codebook command. The codebook age here, we see that it's a numeric variable. The data type here is numeric. But when we say codebook, the same variable here, age new, you will realize that it's a string variable. Now when you tap age new, the values, I mean, the data we see here is similar to what we get when we tap age 1, but they are not the same. That's what we have to know, because when we check the data types for both variables, we see that one is string and one is numeric. So what it means is when we try to run mean for this age new, because it's string, to tell us that string variables not allowed in values because we can't generate the means and do those summaries with string variables. But there's something we can do. We can easily destring this variable. So we just destring it and replace it. So destring and replace will replace the same, or we can destring and generate a new variable altogether. But here we just want to destring and replace that variable. So this same variable, we just destring and replace it so that it wouldn't be a string variable again. So what has simply happened is that we have destringed that variable and we've replaced it. So now when we codebook page new, we see that it's a numeric variable, so we can now proceed to do summary statistics like the mean and then check the median and then the variance, kurtosis, and skewness of the variable. Okay, so that's dealing with formatting data types. So the different data types, how do you check that? You just use the codebook command, and then you know the data type you have. Another this thing that comes in handy is when I think this variable marital status. So in the instances where your categorical variable are not given values. So as you can see here, marital status depicts divorced, married, single, widowed. But then when we try to codebook it to see the data type it is, it's a string variable, and it has no values. It has no ones, twos, and threes attached to it. So basically, it's a character variable, and we can perhaps do a lot with it in Stata. So in Stata, as I mentioned, Stata usually, even if it's a categorical variable, underneath it needs the ones and twos and the zeros to work with. Okay, so for instance, you see there's a difference between this marital new and this married, because when we codebook this married, it has the values attached to it. Okay, so when we browse these two variables, we see that one, although on face value they are married, but one underneath it has a value attached to it, which is 1, and single has a value attached to it, which is 2. But here, and they are also color coded, so you can easily tell that this is a string variable and this is a numeric variable. That's how you can also tell the differences. Okay, now assuming we had our data in the string, this particular variable in string, and we didn't have the first one, so let's drop this, the first marital, and this is the only variable we have. Okay, and a string, and we want to destring it, but because we want to run some analysis with it. Okay, so we want to attach values to this. What do? We can simply use the encode command. So we encode marital new, and then we generate a new variable called marital. Okay. So that way we have been able to attach the values to this marital. So now when we codebook marital, it comes with values. So 1 is married, 2 is single, 3 is divorced, 4 is widowed. That's how we can do that. So again, when we browse marital new and the new variable we've created, marital, from the encoding, we can see that the marital is now a numeric variable, and this, but then it's still a categorical numeric variable. Okay, so I hope this is clear for us and we understand. So yes, thank you very much. This is about it for the second part of data cleaning and data processing. And subsequent ones we will delve into other aspects of data cleaning and proceed with data analysis. So thank you very much. Subscribe for the YouTube algorithm to be able to share and help us produce more of this informative content and videos for you. Thank you very much for your support.